Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will be using my full 15 minutes for questions. And I would like to begin with, in the main estimates, the Department is asking for $262 million for Aboriginal economic development. However, the information from the PBO's integrated monitoring database shows that the Department only spent 50% of its allocated funding in the first 3 quarters of the last financial year. What is the most recent financial data that the Minister has on this line item, and does he expect the unused funding to be carried over into the estimates currently before the House?
The Honourable Minister of Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development.
Well, Mr. Chairman, when we talk about economic development, there's no question that our government recognizes that the most effective way to address the gap in socioeconomic conditions that are faced by Aboriginal Canadians remains increasing their participation in the economy, and as all members will agree, all Canadians benefit from strong, healthy, self-sufficient Aboriginal peoples and communities. Now, the historic Crown First Nation gathering reaffirmed the Government of Canada's commitment to creating conditions to accelerate economic development opportunities and maximize benefits for all Canadians. And the funds that are allocated in the main estimates for economic development are in line with what was done in the previous fiscal year, which will ensure that we can continue to make progress on that front.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, in the main estimates, the Department is asking for $11 million for Métis rights management. However, the information from the PBO shows that the Department only spent 38% of its allocated funding in the first 3 quarters of the last financial year. What is the most recent financial data that the Minister has on this line item?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Chairman, the Honourable Member will have observed that in the program architecture of that specific program, there have been changes, and as a result, the estimated amounts budgeted in the estimates for Métis can be found under the program 1, and it is important that we continue to work with Métis people to improve their quality of life. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, I had a good meeting with the president of the Métis Federation the week before, where we renewed and signed a protocol to ensure that we can.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, my understanding is that the time allotted for the question and answer is supposed to be roughly the same amount of time.
You're correct. I would direct the Minister to try to restrain his answers to roughly the same length of time as the question. I will go back to the member for Nanaimo Cowichan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 2 fiscal years of higher spending, why is the government only planning on spending $9.7 million in the coming year on emergency assistance when we already have high flood forecasts in much of northern Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Emergency preparedness is a serious concern of the Department for First Nations. That's why I recently was in Western Canada, where I visited, among other communities that were affected by the 2011 one. I had a meeting with the leadership of the First Nations, where we discussed the emergency preparedness. As a matter of fact, I will meet with the Minister of Saskatchewan in the next few weeks in order to ensure that emergency preparedness be effectively implemented on First Nations, not only in Saskatchewan, but throughout all of Western Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, has a performance measurement strategy for the Emergency Measures Assistance Program of the Department been prepared? Perhaps a yes or no.
The honourable minister.
At all time, Mr. Chairman, the Department monitors the activities that it carries. We want to make sure that the taxpayer dollars that we invest in whatever program are spent in the best interest of taxpayers, and of course, emergency preparedness, just like any other program, are delivered with this principle.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Could the minister please indicate where in the estimates is the additional funding required by First Nations to implement all aspects of Bill C-27?
Honourable minister.
C-27, which one is that? Transparency. Mr. Chairman, if she looks carefully throughout the estimates, she will not find it, because it does not result into increased cost for First Nations. I want to remind the member that the First Nations already had to publish, not to publish, but to produce before the consolidated financial statement.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, since there's clearly no money to implement C-27, why did the government change the most recent contribution agreements to tie implementation of C-27 to the funding agreements?
The honourable minister.
Simply so that such agreement conform to the law as it stands now.
Honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Is the department demanding all First Nations send letters stating that they did not sign this year's contribution agreements under duress?
The honourable minister. Response.
I didn't get this question, Mr. Chairman.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Mr. Chair, is the department demanding all First Nations send letters stating that they did not sign this year's contribution agreements under duress?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Chairman, the fact of the matter is that indeed some First Nations were kind of taken short by the short period of time at which they received the funding agreement this year. Upon my arrival, I instructed officials to make sure that next year these funding agreements be provided to First Nations with a longer delay so that they may consider those, and that's what will happen.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, as you said from the outset, if we were to have a thoughtful discussion and debate this evening, we would do a couple of things. One, we would conduct ourselves in a manner that's consistent with the rules in the Standing Committee, and with respect to time allocations, we would leave it in your very capable hands to decide when. We don't need the chirping stopwatches that we're hearing across the way that are interrupting questions and responses. Thank you.
I think that was more of a speech than a point of order, but back to the process. No. The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will the minister announce a joint process with First Nations to develop next year's contribution agreements?
There you go.
The honourable minister.
What we will do and what we have undertaken to do with First Nations concerning the next round of funding agreements is to provide them long in advance so that they may have proper time to consider those.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair?
Slightly less than 6 minutes.
Thank you. How many specific claimants are still waiting to hear if this government will accept their claim for negotiation?
The honourable minister.
I thought she was going to congratulate the government on the speed at which we have been able to clean the bundle of claims that had not been addressed. I mean, in 2012, we have, as a result of the Justice That Lasts policy, implemented by this government have been able to solve, I think, over 97 special claims with and at a cost of about $1.some billion, and these First Nation communities that benefit from these funds, Mr. Speaker, not only does it settle a wrong, but it allows these communities to pursue economic development.
The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. That actually wasn't the question. My next question is the Kelly Lake Cree Nation claim one of the claims the government is still deciding on?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker.
Could the honourable member repeat the question, please?
Is the Kelly Lake Cree Nation claim one of the claims the government is still deciding on?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Chairman, all of the comprehensive claims that are being negotiated are on the website. It's easy to find out.
The honourable member for Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Has a Nunatuhavut Community Council land claim been accepted by this department?
The honourable minister.
Is the question about the Nunatuhavut's claim? This claim, as she may know, Mr. Chair, has been presented a long while ago, and this is a claim that is still being considered, and no decisions has been made.
The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan.
What is the status of the Labrador Innu land claims agreement in principle?
The honourable minister.
That land claim agreement, the agreement in principle, I believe is still being discussed and has not been concluded.
The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Mr. Chair, the government keeps talking about willing partners. What is the government's plan to work with unwilling partners, since the government has a constitutional obligation to do so?
Yes. The honourable minister.
I could simply say it takes two to tango.
The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Have all the government bills tabled in this Parliament that affect Aboriginal people's rights met the legal requirement for consultation and accommodation as defined by the courts?
The honourable minister.
I'd like to correct the record. I referred to a soft specific claim earlier, as and it is 93 that have been solved under justice at last.
Want to respond to the question? The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan.
Mr. Chair, I suppose my time doesn't get extended. Have all the government bills tabled in this Parliament, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Been extended.
Have all the government bills tabled in this Parliament that affect Aboriginal people's rights meet the legal requirement for consultation and accommodation as defined by the courts?
The honourable minister.
Canada takes its legal duty to consult very seriously. We not only acknowledge that duty, we implement it, and every activity or conduct that may adversely affect inherent Aboriginal rights or claimed potential rights or title to land is, of course, done through the duty to consult.
The honourable member from Nanaimo-Cowichan. You're in your last minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did the department recommend or undertake consultation with Aboriginal peoples regarding the China-FIPA agreement, because there is a court challenge pending?
The honourable minister.
Since the matter is before the court, I think we'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
We have time for one more question.
Mr. Chair, how can the federal government justify increasing operating expenses for ANSI while simultaneously reducing the funds allocated to grants and contributions for First Nations communities?
Minister has about 30 seconds to respond.
Mr. Chair, the operation seems to be inflated simply because it's not only about operation, but there are other items that come under vote 1, and it doesn't go all to operations.
Resuming debate, the Honourable